Welcome to today's CFO program, Cybersecure, how to get ROI from your security and not get hacked. My name is Stacy Hall, and I'm the California Regional Director for the CFO Leadership Council. We also have Debbie Dunn, Marketing Director for CFLC, on the call and helping me facilitate. We hope everyone is doing well. We're so excited to have you here today. We've got some great information for you. Before we get started, just a couple of things. We want to ask everyone to keep your lines muted to avoid distractions. However, we certainly encourage your questions and comments. You can use the chat box at the bottom, and we may actually have some time to open it up and make it a little more of a lively discussion. So if you've not done it already, I recommend you click on the view box in the upper right-hand corner where it says speaker view. And right now I'm sharing my screen. It might say side-by-side speaker view, but this will help you keep focused on who is talking. If you are a member of CFOLC, you will receive 1.5 CPE for today's webcast, just as you would in the live event. To receive credit, though, you must answer at least 5 of the 6 polling questions that we asked today, and we will interrupt our discussion to bring those to you and give you a chance to answer. The good news is we'll also share some information at the end of the webcast. If you're not a member and want to end up joining today, you will qualify for today's CPE. We are also recording today's event, and we do keep those on the member portal. So if you missed anything or want to go back over anything, it'll be posted probably within 2 days of the event. I want to take just a moment and give a little shout out to our partners who really make these events possible. I can say we've chosen each of our sponsors because we see them as thought leaders for their exclusive categories. The wealth of information they've been able to provide during these crazy times has been amazing. I can't thank them enough for their partnership, and I encourage you to reach out and connect with them. They are such great resources for you. So I want to just give a quick shout out to each of them, but Bank of America, they have been a longtime sponsor of the CFOLC, and they know the importance of, we all know the importance of having a trusted financial services partner. So Jennifer Gallagher is our steering committee representative. She's new to our steering committee team, so please reach out and get connected with her. Oracle NetSuite is another one of our national sponsors. Kirk Perez is our Orange County go-to person for NetSuite. He has a very thorough understanding of CFOLC membership needs when it comes to cloud accounting, so a great connection to have. Cyvatar, they are our newest sponsor, and they offer a full outsourced security program for any size organization. Their mission is to make cybersecurity affordable for everyone and always aligned with business outcomes. So they're actually speaking on our panel today, so you're going to hear more from them, but I'm super excited. Corey White is one of their founders, and he's also our steering committee representative, so we're really lucky to have him. KPMG, whether it's figuring out the new tax changes or guiding you through an audit, KPMG can help you through it. Mike Polenzani and team are always there for you. Hopefully we'll get back to meeting in their offices soon. Effectus Group, for all your technical accounting and staffing needs. Our longtime partners are Matt Savetich and Mike Montgomery. They are a wealth of information. I'm constantly amazed by them, so you definitely want them in your network. Workday Adaptive Planning, they can help you with all your FP&A solutions. Corey Reed is our steering committee representative. He is such an excellent resource during these times, and he's really jumped in and helped us put together some excellent programs and information for our members, so I'm so appreciative. Last but not least, Hughes Marino, business real estate gurus Mike Lewis and David Marino are an invaluable real estate resource. They specialize in tenant representation for CFOLC members. They are so well connected, so believe me, you definitely want them in your network. So thank you to all our thought leaders and our steering committee members. We so appreciate you and all you do to put these programs together. So now I want to turn it over to Corey White. As I mentioned earlier, he's the co-founder and CEO of Cyvatar. Corey has a very impressive background, and I'm so excited to have him speaking today. So Corey, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can tell everyone more about yourself and get us started. All right.
Okay, fantastic. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull up my deck, and while I do so, I have actually Craig and Brandon introduce themselves, and I'll go last, and then I'll start walking us through the presentation. So, Craig, you want to take a minute while I pull this up?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Corey. Fantastic to be here. Great to meet you all. You'll notice from my accent that I'm not in Orange County or indeed the US. As long as you don't guess Australia, we will remain friends. I'm in the UK. I've been a chief security officer for about 18 years, mainly for US-based tech companies. So for the likes of Monster Worldwide out of Boston, CDK Global, which was Chicago. And then I ran the managed security services business at Fujitsu for a couple of years. So 18 years building, running, operating large-scale cybersecurity programs through the best and the worst times, through some big breaches and some really good times of affecting change and driving cybersecurity across those organizations. That ended 2 years ago when me and Corey got together to found Cyvatar and really do something different in the industry and really try and drive business value through cybersecurity. But I'll let Corey touch on that.
Okay, and Brandon?
Cool. I'm here today to help on the panel. So I'm Brandon, CFO at a company called Stoplight. We're an early stage growth company on the 21 companies to watch in Austin, Texas. And we are a API development tool company who came across Cyvatar, about a year ago and needed their help through some security challenges. So I think we'll be able to dive in on that a little bit later, but that's who I am and that's why I'm here today to help.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me give a little bit of my background. So I've been doing cybersecurity the last 25 years, started in the mid 90s, and back in the day, it wasn't that complicated. I could be the security guy and kind of know everything. Well, security's gotten a lot more complicated. In 2004, I joined a company called Foundstone, based in Southern California, and a lot of the industry veterans were there. George Kurtz, who's now at CrowdStrike, Stuart McClure, who built Silence, which just got acquired by BlackBerry, and then Kevin Mandia, who is at FireEye, currently CEO, president there. So, being around those people and trying to solve cybersecurity challenges, we did that for, I was there for 8.5 years. And our company got acquired by McAfee, then Intel Corporation. Did some of the largest incidents in the world. In 2009, the Google hacks that came into my incident response hotline. We responded to it. So we spent 3.5 months up in the Bay Area at some of the largest companies in the world in responding and investigating those incidents. In 2011, I personally ran for 5.5 months the Sony attacks when Anonymous was attacking them. These are all public attacks, so I can talk about them. There were many others that my team and myself did that are not public that we cannot talk about, but those are ones you can Google around. Also around the same time, while fighting Anonymous, with a hack that was by when they hacked into HB Gary. They were one of my incident response partners. And so as a result, you can Google Corey White and WikiLeaks and find me on WikiLeaks because Anonymous broke in and stole their email and put it on the internet. So that was 10 years ago. It wasn't fun at the time, but now it is kind of like a nice little footnote there. But what we decided after leaving, Foundstone in 2012, I joined Stuart at Silence, and we built up a pretty huge unicorn here in Orange County, and we were able to really change the industry and get people to a prevention state. And then after we got acquired by BlackBerry, I spun off, and that's when Craig and I started Cyvatar. So that's a quick summary of the 25 years and my background and experience here. So that being said, let's dive in. On our website, you can get a lot of the details of what we're talking about here, but we call it the 8 epic cybersecurity fails, because what I've seen in my 25 years, we're making a lot of mistakes as an industry, and those get pushed down to the customers that aren't cybersecurity experts, and then as a result, end up leading to some of these breaches. So I absolutely want this to be interactive. And Brendan and Craig will be helping with that process, providing color commentary. And Brendan being a CFO, we absolutely value his opinion. He's going to come in and ask the CFO type questions, whereas Craig and I, we may assume that CFOs understand this and financial industry people understand these things, but probably not. So I love being questioned and having folks like Brandon clarify, make sure that you actually get it. And at the end, we're going to have some Q&A, and throughout the process, we will have poll questions. So let's dive in. So what we've done here, if you download the ebook, you'll see what we've done is we've made these comics to make them really simple. So the first thing I want to talk about is in your organization, you buying a security product, it does not actually get you secure. In many cases, I've seen this just all across the industry, ends up being shelfware. And I'm gonna walk you through this quick comic, but these are things that I have seen and Craig and I've seen throughout the industry. So company has a breach. Then new CEO comes in. This happens a lot when they replace the CEO or the CISO. They come in, so what's our cybersecurity strategy? And then the person, whoever is responsible for it, says you're looking at it. They have the best scanners, they have everything you can imagine that is marketed to be the things to secure you. And so they've got it. We've seen companies, I've seen companies spend $10 million a year on cybersecurity and still get hacked to this point, but we just got hacked. And her answer is, well, we bought everything. We've got the security assessments, we've got all the products, we do pen testing, but we still got breached. And so his question is, who's responsible for making sure everything works well together? And the response is, well, I'll add that to the list of tasks. What ends up happening, just because you buy a bunch of products, that absolutely does not mean that you are secure. And so that's a misconception that people think that we bought some products, are we secure? And that is not always the case. And Brandon, I don't know if you have any commentary there from a CFO perspective. I know you're the one that's approving the spin. How does that look on your end?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a good time to dive into kind of the use case for us, I think, maybe. And so, for us, we had a sales problem. And when we were introduced to Cyvatar, they kind of came at us and said, look, we can help you with this strategy from multiple points, from a services perspective and a software perspective. And so, the relationship started very easy in the sense of we needed some help on our sales team. We had two people. We're an API company. We sell to companies like Dell, Union Pacific, Charles Schwab. And those companies in particular, as you try to be a part of their organization from a dev tool perspective, really want to understand your security story and make sure that you're not a soft spot within their infrastructure that they've built that allows for the ability to be penetrated or have any type of data loss or any of that type of things that could come up. And so we, as an early stage company, did not prioritize those as being questions we could answer. That didn't mean we weren't necessarily prepared to handle or that we were a potential breach for these customers, but it was more like we didn't know how to explain that we weren't, frankly. And so our relationship with Cyvatar started out as, can you help us explain to customers that they're not going to get hacked if they use our product? And a lot of that comes in the ways of like security questionnaires, as an example. Customers will give you their 30-page security questionnaires and be like, here you go. Can you facilitate these needs? And in most cases, is kind of a rule of maybe 60-40 in the beginning, where we can answer 60% of the questions. And we needed somebody else, like Craig in this case, to help us answer the other 40% and get us in shape to get the other 40% over the finish line with a combination of services and software. And so that's how we thought through security and needed this solution from Cyvatar to be able to kind of help us get sales over the finish line a lot quicker. And for me, as a CFO, the biggest thing especially at a company that had just raised an A round, you want to be pretty thoughtful and make sure the money gets down the path long enough, right? You want to make sure your burn's in good enough shape so your fume date is further out. And so for us, sales is a big thing. I mean, just for everybody, sales is a big thing. And so if sales is not able to get a deal across the finish line because they can't answer a security questionnaire, I just wanted to take all the blockers out of the way. And so that's what happened. That's enter Cyvatar. So.
Yep, I appreciate that, Brandon. So the next lesson that we want you guys to get your arms around is, at the end of the day, when you're looking at the cybersecurity industry, I want you guys to think about it from the perspective of when you're buying from a cybersecurity company and they're selling a product to you. I hate to put it this way, but they actually don't care about you, most of them. They care about the sale. And buying, to my previous point, buying a security product or a service is like one step. It is not actually what's going to get you secure. And I'm sure you guys on the financial side of things, you look at the cybersecurity companies are making a ton of money. The VC market is just going crazy right now as far as new investment into cybersecurity companies. But at the end of the day, many of them are not focused on actually getting their customers secure. Is their product multiple? So you as the customer, you have to think about, are we actually getting secure? What value did we get from buying this product? So I'm gonna go through the comic here at the bottom. Again, these are all real world cases that I've seen. So salesperson is selling someone, hey, you buy our product, you'll be 100% secure. Yes, I've heard that. If anybody tells you that, run, okay? Because that is not the case. And then a few days later, when they get hit with ransomware, and that they thought they were supposed to be protected from, then they're frustrated, they've been breached. So they call the salesperson that sold them the amazing product or service or whatever, and they say, oh, well, I'll connect you with my incident response team. And then, there's extra costs for that incident response, and you may need to buy more software. So what they originally sold you doesn't actually prevent those attacks. And it's pretty common that I've seen companies, whether it be managed service providers, whatever, they make more money off of the incidents their customers have than the actual service that they're providing to themselves. So that's one of the major challenges in the industry, is that they end up being stuck and not actually solving the problem. And Craig, I know you have some experience, in that, and so I love you to kind of chime in from a CISO perspective and how you may be able to provide some guidance to the team here.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I love the points that Brandon brought up as well about driving revenue with security. I think as a CISO of many, many years in mainly larger organizations, it became a bit of a joke. Holy grail was to kind of drive revenue with security, because all CISOs, security people, want to be in that position. I think what's happened over the last 5 or 6 years is smaller companies realize that security by design is a genuine differentiator for them, right? So they're starting much earlier in the process. And then when you start to do that and you start to look at what's on the market to help me to drive revenue, you look at those questionnaires that you're getting from customers and you can't match one for one. Brandon and Stoplight had the same problem. You read something that says, you need to be running a threat and vulnerability management program, for example. You need to be scanning things and fixing things, right? You can't go and buy a product that scans and fixes things. So a business person looking at that questionnaire can't match one-to-one with what's on the market. And that's what Corey's saying here in these examples. You can't go and buy a product to fix a process or a programmatic issue. You know, you can't, as CFOs, you can't go and buy a tool that fixes your financial processes, right? That's something that you've got to undertake and you've got to do and you've got to build, right? So there is no product, there is no holy grail, there's no golden bullet, whatever phrase you want to use. You have to build this stuff. And none of those single products, none of those single solutions will really do that for you off the shelf. And it's a hard lesson that most organizations learn much later. You know, you go and spend millions on tools, products, toys, as me and Corey like to call them in a security context. You go to the board 3 or 4 years down the line and they say, well, are we protected? And you get that kind of worried, slightly jaded, confused response, which says, well, not really protected. Well, why are we not protected? Because I've spent $10 million. Well, because that's just the first step. Now you've got to spend another 10 million on different products to actually get things fixed, right? And that continual problem, that continual cycle moves through CISOs, and it makes it really, really, really difficult, particularly for smaller businesses, to even get started in this process if they're looking for that holy grail or the silver bullet that solves their problems.
Yep. Thank you, Craig. So we're going to move into a poll question here on multi-factor authentication. I'll give you guys a few minutes here to fill it out and populate it. Hey, Brandon, do most CFOs know what multi-factor authentication is?
I do, in the context of like Bill.com or QuickBooks. You know, we utilize multi-factor authentication. This question is kind of nebulous to me, meaning, yes, we do, but like on what platforms do you consider it to be most necessary, right? And so it's good to see that 90% of the people did, though. That's good.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be that high. And so to answer your question around which platforms do you think about the CFO stack? Well, the answer is everything, especially the CFO stack, because there's a thing called business email compromise. I'm sure some of you guys may have heard of that, but that's when you're getting these spam emails asking either your CEO or your controller, whoever, to transfer money to an account or whatever. What is happening on the back end, and this applies to ransomware, it also applies to business email compromise, is that they are actually hacking into your organization, in many cases hacking into your email. And so when they hack into your email, then they can go and set up email forwarding and manipulate your email, look like it came from, you know, the CEO of the company. So if you're not using multi-factor authentication, then someone can just use a name and password. And this is a very important statement I'm about to make. Your passwords are compromised, okay? Just assume your passwords are compromised, okay? Because a username and password is an antiquated way to actually secure an organization. There's so many ways to crack passwords quickly. If you're using a shared password that may have been seen out there somewhere already, then that is probably compromised. Just I verify, like even the passwords I used to use, you know, years ago, you know, they're compromised. So you got to use that in context here. And again, that's how these hacks are happening. Last thing, and I'm going to talk a lot more about this, is ransomware is not malware. Ransomware is a hack. And then they use malware to get in. So we'll talk about what that is. But if you have multi-factor authentication throughout your organization, then you can stop these ransomware attacks and some of these business email compromise attacks that are happening. So I assume everybody, go ahead.
Would you just suggest that we make sure we use a multi-factor authentication? Like in my mind, it's anything that touches the bank, right? So the bank, I use it for. Bill.com to pay out bills, things that could potentially draft currency out of that bank and have touch points with the bank. Stripe is another one. Would that be your suggestion? Make sure the touch points to the bank are at the very least multi-factor authenticated.
Yes, yes, 1000%. And think about the rest of your greater organization, right? Your Office 365, your cloud, Gmail or G Suite, whatever you use. Those have it built in. You just have to enable it, which is usually fairly easy. Your personal banking, your personal finance situation, make sure you're using multi-factor authentication there. So anywhere that it is available, AWS, use it with that. So if it exists in your organization with some of the tools and SaaS applications you may be using, please enable it. Because again, back to my point, imagine your password is compromised. It probably is. So that's how a lot of these hacks happen. So we're going to move forward to the next poll question, which is on antivirus. Give you guys a minute to populate the answers here. Okay, looks like we're trending toward more unsure for will your antivirus detect and remove ransomware? So, yeah, I've worked at multiple antivirus companies over the last 20 years or so, whether it be McAfee or Silence. And here's the deal. So at McAfee, when I was doing all those, very large incidents, the reason why we got those incidents, one, I ran the incident response team, but two, of the thousands and thousands of global customers that had McAfee, unless it's something that's been seen before, it is not actually designed to stop. It is a response capability. So antivirus is by default a response capability. If it's something that's been seen, usually it's old malware, and then it'll stop it. But if it's something that's brand new, literally I can make some malware right now. They're toolkits, and I'm not some tech genius. It's really easy. You can download and create your own malware really easily. A few steps is automated nowadays, and it will not be detected by traditional antivirus. So you need to have some type of artificial intelligence driven antivirus, and you absolutely need to have it configured to be able to remove and prevent the malware from execution. Okay, and that's a really good clarification, because ransomware in this particular case, if you have like a legacy antivirus, and this technology was created 30 years ago, okay, around 1990-ish is when it really was created. So if we today are still using that technology and thinking it's going to stop some of these sophisticated attacks, we are mistaken. It does not stop it. And that's how most of these companies that are hit with ransomware, you think, oh, they must not have, antivirus. Yeah, they did. It was just easily bypassed. So that's first step. Next step is, once you get an artificial intelligence-based antivirus, solution, you have to configure it to actually block the attack. In cybersecurity, there's this concept, and you'll Google it, in MDR, managed detection and response. So what you really are saying is that we're okay having an incident, but we're going to detect it and respond quickly and maybe before something bad happens. The minute that ransomware executes, then you are encrypted. So that's why it's important to, as this poll mentioned, most people aren't sure what is happening. That's why these hacks are happening. And there are easy ways we'll talk about at the end to actually stop them and prevent these things from happening. Okay, so one more poll question here, patching. So let's pop that one up. Are your systems continually patched? I know about a year ago when Zoom, was having security issues, and they had updates coming out almost, every day sometimes. And you think about Zoom, you think about Adobe, you think about your operating system, whether it be Windows or Mac or whatever, all those patches that you see that you need to be applying. And a lot of people push off, and I've seen computers where just the box says, hey, you need to update, and just sits there, and they never actually do that. So looking at the results, are your systems continually patched? Most people say yes. And I actually will call BS on that, in my opinion, because when you think about it, patching falls into two buckets, one being your operating system, and then two being the applications that are running on your system. So say you do have it where it automatically patches your Windows or Mac system and it reboots every, whatever interval it is. You still have the operating system ones. I'm sorry, the application ones. And what ends up happening is, as a former pen tester, we can scan your computer. Like all of us are probably sitting on the internet right now. If we're sitting on the internet, your computer is probably being scanned. And say if you were vulnerable to any one of these newer vulnerabilities, or any vulnerability, frankly, even some of the older ones, we can launch a toolkit, and it's automated. Again, I am not some super hacker dude. These are automated toolkits. We scan you. Oh, you haven't patched this Adobe or Zoom or whatever vulnerability, and I can press a button. It will give me a command prompt on your computer. So that's why it's very important to patch. Once I get a command prompt, then I'm able, again, in a ransomware scenario, escalate privileges to administrator. Once I'm administrator on your system and potentially on your network, then I can strategically place the ransomware or disable your backups so that my ransomware attack will be successful and I will get paid. That happens every single day. So you have to be diligent on your patching. Okay, we're going to move forward to the next comic, and these again are all real world examples. So when you think about the security industry, actually, I think I went over this already. I'm gonna skip that one. Let's do another poll on compliance. This is and Brandon, I'll put you on the spot while we're doing this. So when you think compliance, I know you've been CFO of a few companies, what do you think? What does it mean to you as far as security?
I've been through a couple due diligence processes, and compliance is a very broad term. And in my mind, it covers, do you have all your HR records? Do you have all the permissions to create the software that you have, and you haven't like stolen IP or things of that nature? But I think in the context that you're asking of it, does compliance make you secure? Not all the time, right? The way I think of it, especially in that regard, is we would have to set aside like escrow accounts because we weren't sure if, we were all the way compliant or somebody could come back at you later on. So,
yeah,
it's not easy,
Yeah, I'll start and I'll let Craig as CISO talk about it. But looking at our results, 57% say no, that compliance does not make you secure. And when you talk compliance, there are a lot of security compliance regulations. Like there's CMMC, there's SOC 2, there's NIST. There's all these ones that really are checklists. And HIPAA, for example, it really is a checklist, but the actual implementation of it is completely separate from that. So Craig, I'll let you chime in on compliance.
Yeah, it's all about what your motivation is, right? So I think if you take being secure, protecting the organization, or like Brandon and Stoplight did, driving revenue with sales, I think that ultimately drives you to the right things. And the byproduct of doing those right things is your compliance, because loads of companies, particularly consultancy companies, will try and sell you on doing all of these separate different standards. But ultimately, the building blocks for all of them, from a cybersecurity perspective, are the fundamentals and the basics that we've touched on a lot today, right? Building those basics in will not only make you compliant with a lot of those standards or regulations, but it also makes you secure at the same time. The problem is that most people approach compliance as a tick box exercise, right? They approach it as the outcome or objective needing to be to tick those boxes. Take, for example, patch management, like Corey was just talking about. You need to have a patch management policy. Now, we can all create a couple of pages of a document that sits on a shelf somewhere, show that to an auditor and say, I've got a patch management policy, and be compliant if you've got a bad auditor. Right? But that's not what you want. The essence of that, asking you to do that, is asking you to actually patch your system so your organization is secure. And if you go in with that mindset that compliance standard is asking you to do the right things to make the business secure, and you take the essence of what it's trying to achieve, it can be a really successful tool to help the organization to be secure. Unfortunately, we all know that's normally not the case. So I would say you start from a position of wanting to build good security. Compliance is a good byproduct. If you approach it like that, you will be successful.
Excellent. So again, another comic here, and that literally the lesson is exactly what Craig just said, but let's just walk through it. And again, I have been in these meetings where you're sitting there in board meetings and they're like, okay, we need to get SOC 2 compliant. And a lot of that's driven by sales. Like, hey, SOC 2 is going to get us more deals. So what ends up happening is a security person's like, but we actually need to be secure too, because compliance does not equal security. And then the question is asked, well, what about our customers? What builds the most trust? Let's ask our customers. So they literally ask their customers. And I've done these polls as well. And customers, want both, right? They want to be able to look and see that SOC 2 or HIPAA or whatever, and know that actually due diligence has happened. But at the same time, they want to know that their data is actually secure. So then lastly, you see here on the slide, the board wants compliance and they end up making it happen. I've seen literally most of the time, the decision is made from a business decision perspective, and they go and they get to checkbox compliance, and they do not focus on security. And they end up, again, that leads into the other comic where I've been in these board meetings, but we're compliant, and that absolutely means nothing. A good example is the PCI requirements. There are a lot of companies that are PCI compliant, but still get hacked all the time. And that's, again, public information on the news. So we'll move forward. Another poll here, and I'll talk about what a managed security service provider is. There are companies out there, and actually it's very, very popular, where they'll go and they'll say, hey, we're going to monitor your network and send alerts if we see something bad happen or anything that looks malicious, we'll send an alert and flag it so you can go and stop it. So the reality of this is that there's a growing market. And so I'll stop for a second. Let us go through the poll results here. I fully anticipated a lot of unsures. Yep, almost 80% unsure. So that's, again, back to what a MSSP is. It's they're logging and monitoring your network. So every time something happens, somebody logs in, something bad happens, potentially a malicious attack scenario, then they're able to say, hey, Craig, here's an alert that you need to go and investigate. And again, I'm gonna let Craig talk to this because he's run large MSSPs and hired them at his companies and unfortunately fired them. So Craig, why did you fire MSSPs?
Well, it's all about value, and we touched on it last time, Corey, right? So a lot of organizations go and use an MSSP because it ticks a box for them, right? They can easily say, my security is being managed in inverted commas, right? Because that word's in there. And a lot of auditors look at it and go, great, good job. You've outsourced it. Don't worry about it. But in reality, the risk still sits with you as an organization. Nothing changes. The risk to your data, Brandon mentioned money and finances earlier. None of that risk goes away. It doesn't become the risk of the MSSP. It's still your risk as an organization. So you need to be comfortable that you're getting your value out of that. And what I found, certainly over the 10, 15 years that I've been using MSSPs, is for the most part, they just make me do more work, right? I make a huge investment in getting them on board. And effectively what they're doing is sending me a ton of alerts that then me as an end user or organization have to action. So thinking from a CSO's perspective, it doesn't remove resources by hiring an MSSP. In fact, it makes you need more, right? Or certainly ones on top of what you're paying that MSSP for. So I think the word managed is a bit of a misnomer in the title of MSSPs. They're not managing very much. Yes, they're ingesting logs, but effectively the actual work, the outcome, the remediation, the risk reduction still sits with the end user organization, which makes the value in the ROI very questionable to me. And actually, to put it in stark reality, in the last two organizations, it was cheaper for me to build my own 24-hour global security operations center with all the technology, all the pain, all the resources that involved, than it was to hire an external MSSP.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, Brandon, from my CFO perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we go through, and it goes back to compliance too, I think as long as we are listening to what the customer's needs are, and in our case, we've probably lost a handful of deals because we didn't have SOC 2 as an example, or we're not SOC 2 compliant yet, and we're working on it, which is part of for us, it's important. I think it becomes more important as a small company with limited resources to kind of have one throat to choke and not have multiple people you have to go to verify your security story and things like that. And so that's our priority, is just try to keep it simple.
Yep. It makes perfect sense. So again, the comic, again, these are real world situations. So on the left-hand side here, alert call from super MSSP. Hello, your network's been breached. The response, oh my God, I thought we were secure. You're a managed security provider. You can't you fix this? No, I'm sorry. We can connect you with our incident response team. And then they send over the calls for incident response, which they're all the well-known large incident response companies. The minimum is $250,000 to respond to some of these very large breaches. And then the smaller breaches that end up happening potentially to you guys' organization on this call, they're still getting pretty costly, because what I'm seeing is the hackers are hacking in, and they, especially in a ransomware scenario, they know how much money you have. So, lastly, back to the comic, aren't you supposed to prevent breaches? And they have to sign up for the incident response and services. MSSPs, as you heard Craig say, they don't actually prevent the breaches. So if you Google around, you'll see MDR, managed detection and response, or XDR, and they're very large, reputable companies selling you that. But again, think about it, this is a logic thing. If you're securing your house, and do you want the alert when they're in your kids' rooms, or already in your house and looking at your family jewels or whatever? Or do you want the alert when they're stopped from getting in your house and they're trying to get in? So these MSSPs in the whole cybersecurity industry, again, calling myself out because I've participated in a lot of this until we fixed it with this company that we're in now. But that's how they make their money. They make more money off of you being compromised and insecure than actually being secure. So make sure you think about what you're buying, because if you end up buying something that you think is going to get you secure, but it only alerts you when you get hacked, those are two very different scenarios. Okay, so last poll here. Prevention possibility. Let's pop that one up. Let's see what we have. Do you believe preventing cyber attacks is actually possible? Cool. Give it like a little bit more. Looks like most people believe it's possible. I do like the depends on how expensive it is. And I want Craig to talk about this just from a CISO's perspective, because you could spend a ton of money on cybersecurity and not actually be secure. But Craig, you want to chime in on your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think something that sometimes gets me into trouble in security audiences, Corey, as you know, is that all of these things, and it's a great conversation, need to be based upon genuine business risk. You have to weigh up the numbers. And as a security person, certainly a modern security person, you have to be willing to accept when the numbers don't work out in your favor. I.e., to your point and to your question, to the question that came through, if you're going to spend, I don't know, let's make up numbers, 5 million on a preventative security solution, But as a result of the breach, you're only likely to, I'm making these numbers up, right? Lose $1 million or something. That business risk calculation doesn't work, you know? And that's okay to say that that doesn't work. It's okay to say that actually my resiliency for that particular type of risk is to pay for some insurance, right? And actually, I've built the resiliency in the business to accept that risk. Now, normally it's not as black and white as that. You put a number of different controls in, you reduce the risk to an acceptable level, and then you say, well, you know, now this little bit of risk that is left, I'll transfer that through the use of insurance, or I'll finish off that last bit. So you can't ever reduce a risk to zero. But I've found, as a security leader for a long time, that having those open, honest conversations with CFOs, with business leaders about where money should be spent and where investments should be made is the right and most effective way to do it. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt doesn't work anymore. You have to go in with metrics, you have to have a conversation, and you have to be willing to the outcome to be, we don't spend it on that because actually we've got better places to spend our money. And that's okay as a response from the business. But yeah, it's a risk-based calculation at the end of the day. You spend the money that mitigates risks and you present those findings to your executive team, to the CFOs in the audience, and ultimately you make a business decision about security and how much prevention and security you apply.
Thanks, Craig. That makes perfect sense. It's interesting what I've seen many, many times over the years when I've come in to do incident response engagements. I look at the infrastructure, the tools, the team, and the construct of that cybersecurity program, and I realize that, okay, they actually weren't designed to prevent the hack. And then I've been in many, many board meetings to where the security leader will say, we're going to get hacked. It's inevitable. You know, we're just not a matter, you know, of when, if, but a matter of when. Sorry, I screwed up. But that is common within cybersecurity. So what I see is that instead of you spending all of your, most of your capabilities on preventing the attack, it goes to the other end where most of it's on just detecting and responding. And so, yes, the hack is inevitable because you're doing nothing to protect it. Really, the basics like patching or multi-factor authentication, all the typical preventative things you should be doing, you're not doing. And so when the hack happens and when these CISOs, and I've seen CISOs lose their jobs, CTOs lose their jobs over these incidents, it's too late. There's nothing you can do. And so one of the other last thing I'll say about this, then we'll move on, is that there's been a trend over the last couple of years where CISOs are stopping being CISOs because of their responsibility. They end up being the fall guy and taking that risk. And folks like Craig jump over to the vendor side. Sorry, giving him a hard time. But that's what is happening because it is such of a difficult job to win at. So prevention is actually possible. Nothing is 100%, but me personally, our clients, we prevent first and then have very good detection capability second. And so that's how you should approach your cybersecurity program. Okay. So again, here's an example, and this is actually a real world one from Craig. He's seen this with some of his executive peers to where they have 10 million of spend on cybersecurity. And you see the CISO saying, yes, I can buy all these tools and buzzwords. And I hate speaking for Craig, but he said something that blew my mind. There are CISOs out there that, they'll buy the tool because they think that if they don't buy it, they're going to be exposed, or their audit department is like, well, you knew about this tool and you should have bought it. And now we've gotten compromised. So they just buy everything. Literally just buy everything. And so these are the companies that end up, being compromised. 1 year later, they've spent the $10 million. The incident happens because they spent it on these detection capabilities. And then the next thing you know, they're like, whoa, how do we justify this spend? What's the ROI on spending 10 million a year on cybersecurity? So that being said, I'm going to move to a quick summary, and then we're going to open up to questions. So there's so much about ransomware that is out there. And what I've done is just, I'm going to talk through this. And then again, I really want to hear your questions, comments. So the topic is why you might get hit with ransomware. And I'm being nice when I say might. You probably will get hit with ransomware. But lesson one, if you don't have multi-factor authentication, that means anyone can get your username and password, whether it be for phishing or they can guess it, whatever it is, they eventually will get in using your username and password, potentially the Office 365 into any of your cloud-based or SaaS solutions. So please implement multi-factor authentication. Second, your antivirus will not detect the ransomware. So again, if you're using traditional antivirus and not an artificial intelligence based one that is configured to block it, it will execute. And then when it executes, then there's nothing you can do. The hackers they're able to hack in, they already know what endpoint protection solution you're using. And if it's a basic one, they don't care. If it's a more complicated one, they're going to try to disable it. And then that may be the alert you get before they drop their ransomware. But ransomware can absolutely be detected and stopped with the right software and the right configuration. So I just talked to this again. You have to stop it from executing, not detect that it is on a system, stop it from execution. So the minute they try to run it, it will block it and quarantine it off. Again, I've done that for thousands and thousands of customers over the years. Your systems are not patched. So ransomware is what is in the news, but it actually is a hack. They're exploiting some vulnerability that gives them access into your systems. So if you're not patching, then those are the vulnerabilities that they are exploiting to get access onto your systems. So it is absolutely critical that you get on a continuous patching program. And with our customers, we've seen, back in the day, you probably heard people talk about Patch Tuesday from Microsoft. Once a month is absolutely not enough. You need to be continually patching, virtually every single day. There are new vulnerabilities that come out that can be exploited via whatever applications you're running or the OS that your laptop or computer may be running on. Okay, you don't have backups or they can be easily disabled. So many companies fall victim to this. They think, oh, if we get hit with ransomware, then we'll just restore from backup. Well, the hackers got pretty smart, right? This is ransomware attacks it's a business. Literally, I've done incidents where you could see the activity from 8 to 5 on the other side of the world. In our case, it'd be night. And so you see them kind of come in, start their pen testing and trying to hack into certain organizations, and you'll see all the stuff outside the firewall. And then come 5 o'clock, you see them stop. So it is their job. So the hacking company from Russia that hacked into Pipeline, they made 100 million last year. Okay, so if you have $100 million business, ransomware, and you don't have to leave your computer, then that's a lot of motivation, and they distribute it amongst their team and they hack in. So the first thing they do once they hack in is they get access to your backups and they disable them. Once they disable them, then they know they're getting paid. It is about them making sure they get money. So make sure, again, multi-factor authentication on your backups, make sure they're cloud-based backups, always test to make sure that they are working and cannot easily be disabled or password changed or blocked from your backups. Your systems are not continually secure. One of the major flaws within cybersecurity, and I did it for 23 and a half years, is I actually would do one-time assessments and pen testing, gap analysis, give the report back to the customer and say, hey, go fix these vulnerabilities, you'll be secure. Well, in today's world, your networks, your cloud environments, your remote environment, everything changes every single day. So if we do a one-time assessment, if you're like compliance will require, hey, do your yearly pen test, that is not going to secure you. That is, the other 364 days of the year, you are probably vulnerable to an attack. And even if you do the pen test and fix everything there, again, the next day, things change and new vulnerabilities come out. So you have to have a continuous cybersecurity program. And again, this is systemic within cybersecurity. And I did it, for many years. And I was just failing with my customers. So we built a continuous model here at Cyvatar for our customers. You don't have a digital asset inventory. So this is small companies, large companies, they all fall victim to this. So you take Equifax, we all knew that, but let me give you a little bit of insight as to what happened. They had a server that was internet facing that was not patched. Most likely they didn't know it existed. You can't patch something if you don't know it exists. So if something's sitting out on the internet and it is not being patched, the hackers exploited a pretty well-known vulnerability. They got onto that system. From there, they were able to go from that server that's internet facing all the way internal to the network and exfiltrate literally all of our personal information. So, but if you had a digital asset inventory, then you'd be able to know, hey, there's a system out there. It's not patched. It's not secured. We don't have any controls around it. You're able to mitigate or stop those attacks from actually happening. So that being said, I do want to dive into questions. Again, a lot of the details that we talked about today, you can go to the website and look at our ebook. I see some notes here in chat. So
yeah, I'd start there, Corey. It looks like Steve has several questions.
okay. I'll start here with Guta Sharafi. So do you need to have separate antivirus on laptops, work from home, or network antivirus is sufficient? Because lots of time I'm not connected to the network and surfing the internet. You need to have antivirus on everything. Work computers, home computers, regardless whether you're connected to the network or not connected to the network. Because here's the deal: if you're, I've seen a lot of time bomb malware where it's set to execute, and run at midnight. There's a lot of scripts that can be built into your computer. So always have antivirus on all of your systems and a fully locked down and preventative blocking state. And remember that antivirus, most of them are just to detect something. And I'll give you a little bit more insight into it. Antivirus, what they have is they have signatures, right? And it matches them via hashes. When that happens, they don't have every single piece of malware from the last 30 years. They just have the most common. So it's not going to see everything. It's not going to stop everything. Okay, next question. What is the cost benefit of on municipalities and businesses paying ransom? So you'll hear the official statements from the FBI, and I've done many briefings with them over the years of not to pay ransom. But if your company or whatever business you're in, if your files are encrypted and your systems are encrypted and you cannot do business, you probably have to pay the ransomware. If you have no backups, if you have no other way to do business, I've seen companies actually go out of business. I've paid the ransomware because, again, negotiating with a ransomware hacker, most people haven't done that before, or most people don't have Bitcoin accounts. So my team has done those. And usually we're able to get the ransom down, and then two, we're able to pay it, and then the customer ends up reimbursing us. But the key is, if you do have to pay it, you do get encrypted, you want to have the tools in place to prevent it from happening again. Because I've seen, think about it, this is a business for them. Oh, okay, you paid in 2019, I got you on a list, and I'm pretty sure you didn't do anything to actually lock down your security. So in 2020, I'm gonna hit you up again. So it could be as simple. I've seen this as simple as 10,000 a year. But if I got 100 different companies and I hit them up for 10,000 every single year, that's good income. And they pay once, they're gonna pay again. So that is what ends up happening. All right, let me keep going. There's so many different password requirements on the platform. 100%. I think, again, strong passwords, and everybody says you need to have it. A lot of times I do absolutely just use my browser that use a random password. It works really well with Chrome. The risk to that, you can use a password manager. The risk to that is, again, if somebody gets into your password manager, or if Chrome has a vulnerability that hasn't happened in a long time. And same thing with Apple, it hasn't happened in a long time. But I remember the last time I saw it happen was around 2014, where they could exploit and get access to your passwords. So again, assume your passwords are compromised, and when you can, have multi-factor authentication in place. Okay, how can you protect your backups so that they are not hacked simultaneously? So a few things. It's your backups need to absolutely be off-site if you can, or cloud backed up. And you need to monitor the logins and access into your backups. I've seen them, you obviously multi-factor authentication needs to be in place with your backup systems, but it's a bunch that you need to do, but mainly it's monitoring, because it's really simple. Once you have that set up, you don't need everybody having access to it, an administrator, so you want to limit who they are. I'm looking at the time here. I could continue going through these, or Stacy, you let me know if we need to stop.
Yeah, no, you have a little more time. We have about 10 minutes. So yes,
okay.
please
Awesome.
keep going.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see. Any recommendations on how to keep track of all these different requirements, or tips on how to keep and remember passwords? Craig, you want to jump in and answer some of these? Like I said, I use Password Manager. I don't know if you have any thoughts around that too.
I would say anything is better than nothing for the most part, right? I think, the ability to use complex passwords is, it's always like a business risk decision. If you've got to, write down complex passwords, then clearly you don't want to be doing that. So any kind of password solution is better than using the same password for everything, which is what most people end up doing, just because it's the easiest thing to do, right? So I think, any of those solutions is good. If you're even thinking about it, I think that's a step in the right direction. If you're a much bigger organization, then there's clearly enterprise ready solutions that you can look at and purchase.
Yep. Thank you, Craig. Okay, we use, hold on, let me make sure I'm in my spot here. Okay, one-time passwords, LastPass. Love LastPass. I've used it for years. Those are good. Again, tie that with multi-factor authentication. That works very well. So if you're using that, Brandon, stick with it. See, any in particular antivirus that you think are better than others? We at Cyvatar, for our customers, we use only AI-based antivirus solutions, because again, we want to prevent the attack from happening. You actually do want to prevent the attack from happening. You don't want it to execute and then you detect it. Because traditional antivirus, in many cases, for the more sophisticated attacks, is a more of a response mechanism than a prevention mechanism. So a couple of solutions that we use, whether it be the BlackBerry Silence solution or the Sentinel-1 solution, both of them are absolutely fantastic. But you want to make sure that you're able to not only detect them and execute them. In my last company, I ran many departments, but one of them was the incident response team, the support organization, and customer success. So we had a bunch of people call in and say, hey, you guys were supposed to prevent this attack, but you didn't. And what ends up happening is we looked at their configuration. They were not configured to block the malware. They were just configured to detect it. And so we had to let them know that you aren't configured to stop it. So that was really frustrating. So you actually have to configure yourself to block it. And that's a big deal. And we do that automatically for our customers. Let's see, on the website, where's the ebook? So I don't know if maybe Aileen or somebody could just paste it in chat, the link to the ebook. Then you'll be able to get it.
Yep, I can.
Okay, I think that's the extent of the questions, unless I missed some of them. Any others open questions that you guys may have?
Feel free to turn off your mic, or turn on your mic, I should say, if you want to jump in and ask a question. We've got just a couple minutes left. And I'll also, Corey, I'll send up a follow-up email, and I'll make sure to also include the link that you guys are putting in the chat with the email to everybody. That sound good?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, just I'll use this time to tell a little bit about Cyvatar. As you know, I think Craig mentioned, I mentioned a little bit as well, is that the bottom line with cybersecurity, there's two ways to look at it. You can take the detect and respond, approach and just kind of monitor. But with ransomware, with the number of attacks increasing year over year, it's pretty obvious that the cybersecurity industry and companies in general are failing. So we took a different approach. We took an approach of across the whole, cybersecurity spectrum, all the tools that you would need. We partner with them and we bring those tools in-house into our customers. Plus we marry them with services, and we focus on, in 90 days or less, getting all of our customers into a locked in preventative state to stop these attacks from happening, and not just sending alerts and saying, hey, Craig, here's something bad that happened, go investigate it, and making you and your team run around and go investigate these attacks. So that's the change that we've made in the industry. The other one is the small to medium-sized businesses really need a lot of help. The reason why I'm saying that is what we're seeing with these attacks, the ransomwares are really successful at small to medium-sized businesses. And those are the lifeblood of the hackers. You'll hear about the Colonial Pipeline and whatever the meat company was and all that, because it affected a lot of people and it's all over the news. But every day, hundreds of small to medium-sized businesses are getting hit, and either they end up seeing them go out of business. I've seen them pay the ransom. I've seen people have to mortgage their houses to take out accounts to pay ransoms. So that's why we focus on large companies, but small and medium-sized are the quick ones we can help really quickly, because folks like myself and Craig, we have the expertise to help there. Let's see a few more questions.
Just one question, Mr. White.
Sure.
I first of all, I want to thank you for sharing your insights and your information. It's been very helpful. Any additional thoughts on how small and medium-sized businesses can help to protect themselves? Anything else that you have to add? That would be great to hear about.
Yeah, a few things. I mean, there's some really good blogs and websites that you can go to that even I subscribe to, and I'll put them into the chat here in a second. But you're able to just get updates on what's happening in cybersecurity. The hard part about what is happening is that there's not a lot of tangible tips that can help, like a small business owner, or not sure what your business is, but that can help you actually fix it. That's one of the challenges within cybersecurity, is that there's a lot of what we call FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, like how bad all these things happen, but there's not a lot of talk about how to fix them. And the challenge is that you got to be fairly technical, and that's one of the things we're focusing on, is how do we help these small to medium-sized businesses and cut through that FUD. I don't know, Craig, you have any ideas there?
It sounds like a broken record, but the basics are always the best place to start. Corey touched on a couple things like MFA, right? You can do that for free. This isn't like touting things that you need to go buy. MFA is built into a hell of a lot of products now. I've said all along, look at what you've got and utilize what you've got. There's so many businesses now, AWS is an example, any of the cloud providers. It's a differentiator for them to put security in, right? So put pressure on engineering teams, put pressure on HR who are using HR tools, finance who are using financial tools. Like, most of those tools have got MFA, they've got security functionality built in. So always use as much as what you've already got in the organization before you necessarily look to start buying things, would be my first point. And then secondly, the basics are always the best, like CIS top 20, which is what we use in the organization. And it's still pertinent for massive organizations, but there's a list of 20 things you need to do, and it really, really helps. So we'll give you the link to CIS as well. Like, I would just say start from the basics and start looking for things that you can do without spending any money first off.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Thanks so much. That's very helpful. Thank you guys for sharing your insights. It's been very helpful.
Gladly, that was the purpose. We want to make sure that we're sharing the right information to the CFO Leadership Council, because it's a challenge. It's really, really hard to solve the cybersecurity issues that companies are having, and it's frustrating when, from our perspective, we see that companies are just doing nothing and frankly giving up. And me personally, I hate giving up. I'm a fighter. So that's one of the reasons why myself and Craig and the rest of the team here, we said we're actually going to get on a crusade to help companies. And by helping companies be secure and prevent these attacks, we actually will be successful, and those companies will continue to be successful. We don't want to make money off of the incidents or the insecurity of security, as we say, that happens. So that's what drives us. We appreciate you guys having us on here. It's been an honor to speak.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Brandon. This was excellent. I will send a follow-up email this afternoon to everybody with all the information that they put in the chat, like the ebook, the case study, and contact information for them. So I just, so appreciative. This was really good stuff. So I want to just real quickly tell you guys about what's coming up. We get a little quieter in the summer, but I do want to remind you that the MIT Sloan, the CFO Accelerator program is coming up. That's limited spots, and it is virtual again this year. So normally you have to go to Boston, but the past 2 years, last year and this year, they're able to do it virtually, and they've broken it up over 6 days. But it's really unique, awesome opportunity taught by the MIT professors specifically for CFO. So definitely worth looking into, and I'll send some information out on that. As I mentioned, if you're not a member, we'd love to have you as a member. And there's so much going on right now in our CFO Connect. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you again to our sponsors for making all this possible. And thank you again, Corey, Brandon, and Craig. That was just great information. So with that, that concludes our presentation, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.